The sound of my voice. Worcestershire. Avail yourself. Textures. You're confused. The sound of texture. Breadline. Naturally. Texture. You're confused. The sound of max. Naturally. The sound of Hello, friends. You've just been listening to the sound of my voice times 16 at upwards of 30 cycles a second. Naturally, you're confused. So allow me to explain. I've just returned from the breadlines with some gourmet MREs and now have some time to run through a quick demo of this Auxture Max product. It's a new Max MSP tool from Audio Bulb in the UK. It's designed by a fellow named Francesco Macario, who is a sound worker from Italy, who I'd not heard of, and comes to us from, as I say, Audio Bulb out of Sheffield, and David Newman, also known as Autisticai. If you've not heard his work, go ahead and drop what you're doing now and avail yourself. So Auxture, which is, it feels a bit like trying to pronounce the word Worcestershire, but yeah, Auxture, presumably a reference to Audio Bulb, Max, perhaps textures, perhaps auxiliary textures. In any case, it is a sampler and sequencer that allows you to load sample banks very quickly here from folders or files, drop them in. They're triggered randomly amongst the samples that you load. This 16-step sequencer has additional randomness and also quite a bit of control of pitch, velocity, duration. You've got ranges here. This can be randomly changed every bar or set statically. You've got control over the rate here. Life is essentially a chance of a sample being triggered, so that this gives you a way to silence samples based on probability. Again, a bit of controlled randomness going on there. This is the start button. It's not labeled, so if any of you troubled lads and lasses out there were unable to figure out how to activate the device, that is the start button right there. As you can hear, it does work. One of the things I like to do with this is play with the rate. Just keep it very low. You can trigger 1 or 2 hits at a time, and then occasionally give a flurry of smattering of samples from your folder there. That's rather fun. So maybe let's take this from the top. So here I've loaded some prepared piano samples from Big Fish Audio's John Cage collection here. This is a Carnatic tuning, just kind of randomly grabbing the most interesting sounding samples in that mode. So I've loaded them up here. And as you can hear, this is triggering them at 4.266 hertz. Samples are triggered randomly, but the sequence can be set statically. Right? So if this every bar is on, you can see the way the samples are being manipulated on each bar changes each time, so you get constant precession of novelty. You can also set it statically so that more consistent control over pitch and velocity and duration here. You can all be set independently on each step. So there's quite a bit of control there. Right. You can also just hit the random button, which does not affect the sequencer or the envelope, but does affect these global settings here and your effects chains. So if you'd like to mash buttons, this is the button for you. Randomize everything. Again, aside from the envelope and the sequencer. And there's no talent that's going to happen when you start doing that. So. Right. So, of course, all of this can be done inside your DAW more or less easily with quite a bit more freedom and flexibility and also control. But the nice thing about this is it's very easy to open outside of the DAW, quickly load samples from a folder that you've prepared and use it to explore sound palettes that you're working with, right? So for instance here, these are some samples from my jug band, this jugs folder. Don't worry, it's not anything dirty. It's just wind in a bottle. So loading that up, we can quickly just explore the timbral possibilities, get some, happy accidents going, make sure that you're using this record button as often as possible, because it is very hard with all of the happenstance here to recreate any strange juxtapositions that you might run into using this thing. So having that record going while you're playing around can be a lifesaver, perhaps. So, little suggestion for you. Yeah, let's hear what the jug band sounds like. Let me zero out these settings. Yep, as I say. And then the bottom, let's soften up the sustain release there. Maybe add some reverses, some stereo spectrum. Yep, you can get some pretty odd squealing chords out of this already. Alright, maybe I'm going to draw them out a bit more. Sure. Slower procession. Or 30 times a second, 16 voices. I will warn you that when triggering long, drawn-out samples quickly, and you run into your 16 voice limit here, you do start bumping up against system resources here. This is a quad-core 2012 MacBook. I'll let you see that just in case it helps at all. And as you can see, there's a bit of a discrepancy between what the Auxture CPU meter is telling you and what Mac tells you here in the activity monitor, likely because there are no standards for counting clock cycles, Mac tends to count the average cycles, whereas a lot of other manufacturers count from the maximum overclock. And so that's probably what this is. But when you're running this, it'll frequently, again, on this quad-core Mac, hit upwards of 70% of my CPU. So bear in mind, when you're running this in Max for Live, you can do that. There are a lot of possibilities there for automation and MIDI, CC, information to be sent, modulated. Maybe you want to run a compressor or mastering tool or something on the output, but you're not going to be doing much more than that, at least without quite a bit more horsepower, because this is pretty CPU intensive, just FYI. So you should think of this as a primary processing device, an exploratory sampler and sequencer. There are also some possibilities for performance here, right? If Curtis Rhodes mission control and things of that sort appeal to you, this is going to offer some possibilities in that vein, where you can get, again, some controlled randomness going, some planned surprises, a sequence of somewhat controlled happy accidents. So just to explore some randomness in the spirit of the project here, I've got a sample set from Matmos here, some Polish radio samples or something. As with these guys, the genesis and pedigree of these samples are questionable at best, but just for demonstration purposes, we can load this up and see what happens. Let's reset our envelope here. So here now is the Matmos sound set, their percussion hits. Have some fun with that. Maybe appropriately. Let's try some textures. Clearing our samples, loading the files. Triggering our samples, and then predictably there are some very strange textures here. Let's draw this out a bit. That'll play out, and the voices will drop out now. And the voices will drop out. We've cleared them. Maybe let's turn the sustain off. I'm noticing that the samples that are loaded, that are triggered, tend to get hung up in RAM somewhere. Especially when you have the sustain on, the voices will fill up and get stuck, preventing you from triggering further samples until you hit this clear button. Yeah, let's maybe try some Portamento. Apparently there's a trivecta for each sample where you have presumably this pitch here, in addition to a Portamento Latin pitching of two other copies of that same sample each time. So as you might expect, that gets fairly strange pretty quickly. Tell you what, we might be able to hear this better with a different sample set. Let's try. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the audio bulb sample sets. Maybe drums would be a good way to demonstrate. Drums might be a good way to demonstrate the timbral possibilities here. Pitch. Okay, so here are our drum samples in this sample bank. Audio bulb, electric drum kit here. Alright. Pretty standard issue stuff. Okay, so timbre delay. This is a short delay that's being modulated. Sounds like a wandering SMH I guess. Just to add some variation to each triggering of the sample. As I was saying, this is your global pitch for all samples. Within that, for each sample, you can deviate from this global pitch with a bit of added portamento, which adds all sorts of weird squiggles. So again, each trigger of each sample has a global pitch and then two detuned with portamento samples now. So we've also got frequency modulation, ring modulation, redux is a bit pressure. Six. Nice. Delay and you got filters here. Bypass, overpass. You can change the type. Of course, there's two secondary filters. Fairly self-explanatory there. Need to really get into this too much. Sequencer, yeah, I think I've said already. This is your start button. It would really be helpful if that was labeled. Francesco or David, if you're listening, start button. Also, it strikes me that a maximum of 30 hertz is a bit excessive. I'm finding that I would rather have finer grain control of these lower rates here and this human range of tempos. Also, it would be helpful if you're trying to sync in standalone mode to performance or some other clock to be able to double-click and enter an exact value, converting BPM to hertz here. That could be really, really useful. But I would settle for some finer grain control here just by maybe cutting this in half. Maybe the maximum could be more like 15 or 20, and give you some finer grain control here on the human end of the rate spectrum. Yeah, what else can we say? It can be changed randomly every bar, as it's doing now. You can also set up a static sequence with control of pitch, velocity, and duration for each sample hit. That's in addition to the global controls here that you have for pitch, detuning, 2 additional voices, timbre, delay, probability of reverse. This is probability of changing the sample. So setting this to 0 will just trigger the same sample over and over again. Setting it to 100 will guarantee that you're triggering a new sample randomly each time, although this is, if you read the documentation, this is based on the previous sample, so I don't know exactly what the algorithm looks like, but yeah, it's again a balance of control and randomness there. So the manual, the user manual, the documentation is available on the product webpage. If you'd like to take a look at that, it is the same thing that you're seeing here now. So it can be helpful, and you can access that as you're using the app with this little question mark. It's an exasperated question mark button. What else is there to say about it? Don't forget to use that record button frequently. What can we end with? Let's clear our samples and end with a bit of glitch from the audio bulb sample folder. We'll let these play out. A modest attack and liberal sustain. These slow our roll a little bit here. Add some detuning in Portamento, detuning with delay. Honestly, feel like the FM and ring modulation kind of kills the fidelity of your sort of actual sound design is this thing. Some delay would be in order. Feedback. Let's play with the delay a bit. Fun times.